Hello and welcome to the Let's Talk Azure podcast with your host Sam Foote.
And Armstrong.
If you're new here, we're a pair of Azure and Microsoft 365 focused IT security professionals. It's episode 1 of season 6. Alan and I recently had a discussion around the new releases in December. Here are a few things that we covered. Key Microsoft Entra, Intune and Defender features and announcements. Azure changes, new features, and also retirements. We've noticed that a large number of you aren't subscribed. If you do enjoy our podcast, please do consider subscribing. It would mean a lot to us for you to show your support to the show. It's a really great episode, so let's get going. Hey Alan, happy 2025.
Hey, yeah, happy 2025, Sam.
Yeah, we had I would say a good break over the holiday period. We're a little bit, I'd say we're a week later than we usually would. But no, it's exciting to get back in and get back recording. Did you have a good holiday break?
Yeah, it was good. It was good to rest this time, I think, and I think I had quite a lot of it off actually this time. And yeah, it was good. What about yourself?
Yeah, good. I did actually work quite a bit over the holiday period, and actually I think it saved me. You know, from that time in between Christmas and New Year where you don't know what day it is, and I don't know, haven't changed out your pajamas for 3 days. That I didn't have that. I went back to normality in between. There was just nobody else in that normality at all because everybody else was vegetating at home.
You were just the spectator of that this time.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, it did work out quite well because I ended up having like 3-day weeks or something like that. I can't remember what the exact makeup of it was, but it was actually quite nice. But yeah,
Nice.
a few days when I went into the office and there was literally, one other person in, basically, and I'm like, but no, it's all good. But yeah, okay. So this episode we're going to cover the news of December 24, because we would have done we did November at the end of November, start of December. We're a little bit later in January, but we'll just cover what happened over December. Alan, do you want to kick us off with your side of things?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I normally cover the sort of Defender XDR products and that side of things, all the 365 and licensing side, I guess. So let's have a look. So if we start off with just generally the Defender XDR in general, I guess it's kind of say, they've done some stuff on GA around content distribution via tenant groups in multi-tenant management. So being able to distribute content in effect, I guess, into specific groups that you might create. I guess it's kind of looking at the workspace manager part of Microsoft Sentinel, kind of replicate some of that features there and bringing it all into one place. Some of the parts are more around linking to instance in the advanced hunting. So you can see the query results. You can go straight to the instant that you find all that's related to it. It's quite good. There's some other bits in here just around some of the KQL functions that are sort of by default in Microsoft Sentinel. They've now brought it into the Defender XDR portal, into that sort of KQL engine. Just so I guess that's the part of the start of the migration, I guess, with some of the queries that you can do in Sentinel now, being able to cross query that with the Defender sort of information as well. Okay, so if we move on to, let's just take a look at this. So the unified experience within Defender XDR portal, so the unified SOC operations platform. What came out in December was that there's some new optimization recommendations based on similar organizations. So I think that's quite interesting. So that's looking at, I'm guessing, the size of your organization, the endpoints that you have, and I guess as it's unified, guess it's also looking at sort of the data sources you might have and trying to understand what optimizations they may take for organizations similar to yourselves. The other part is that the Microsoft Sentinel workbooks now are viewable directly in the Defender portal, and that it doesn't redirect you to the Azure portal. So that seems quite good, and starting to, again, bring that single panel or the integration of Sentinel into the portal.
Do we? Is it now sort of a foregone conclusion that is essentially that's the way it's going to go now?
I don't think it's anything sort of official, but it's definitely, well, based on everything now just working in the portal, it's definitely given that indication now.
I was
for sure.
I was thinking about this the other day because I know it's not the same thing, but they have done the same thing with Purview as well, haven't they? With the new like Purview portal and experience, they've really well integrated. Well, no, actually, I'm not going to say they've really well integrated because it is sometimes really confusing when you've got a customer that's on a really high license level and they say that they're on the free version of Purview. That does sometimes get a bit confusing, I must admit. But they've essentially taken the 365 side of unstructured data side of Purview, and they've merged it together with what I don't know what the latest iteration of it was. Governance, Azure Purview Governance Portal, I think it was called.
Yeah,
and now is it now called Enterprise Purview or something? Sorry, but they've essentially done that, haven't they, on that side? And so I feel like that's a very similar thing that's happening with Defender XDR and Sentinel. With the sprinkling of Security Copilot, I suppose, interweaving as well, because again, that is an Azure resource, isn't it, that has to be linked back in and integrated. So yeah,
I think the other example is also Defender for IoT, because I think most of that is moved now into the XDR portal, and all the licensing got changed in it to site-based rather than you having to buy it through consumption.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's all going to one place, and like you said, you're going to turn up with and end up with 3 portals. Identity, Entra, the security, the XDR one for security, and then you can have your compliance one, aren't you? So you can have your SCI portals.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think that'll make the discovery of a lot of these tools a lot easier to stomach. And I think actually using them on a day-to-day basis, that is going to be better for people, isn't it? There's not that kind of awkward bridge between Sentinel and Defender XDR that you've got to like click through. Does that make sense? And where does the functionality live? Does that make sense? Like how much of Defender, they need to bring into Sentinel and vice versa. Now they're like aligned next to each other, aren't they? So I think it's only a good thing.
Yeah, and the click through, like the workbook one we just talked about, it's fine. I guess it's generally fine for you to jump out into the Azure portal, but then you're somewhere else, and you might partially get confused about how you get back.
Yeah, and I genuinely think when you're in that I'll call it incident response mode, right? You've already got enough to sort of understand and and work through, right? You don't need to be jumping through 2 completely different user interfaces and 2 separate areas and working out where functionality and data is on either side, Because I just think it's like maintenance of content, isn't it? You've got content in like 2 places and blah blah blah. But I think it's only a positive thing. I think it can only improve the user experience, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we'll see. I think it's going in the right direction. It's just, it's not. It is that we're in that transition period, aren't we? But as we've seen, more stuff is being enabled to just work in that portal. Probably still backed into Azure for now, but we'll see where the rest of it goes, I guess. Okay. So if we move on, I think, let me just double check. Yeah, it's November stuff. So yeah, that was the only two things that sort of came out for the unified side of things. Defender for Identity. So generally every month, normally with this, we get a sort of an update to the agents. The agent to do new sort of functionality, but I think because of the unified client that's come out for Defender for Identity, Defender for Endpoint, and Endpoint DLP, I think the most focus is there to try and get that rolled out to all platforms and things like that from a configuration perspective, but as part of the posture management sort of side of it, in December, Microsoft released a new one for prevent certificate enrollment with arbitrary application policies, ESC 15. So yeah, it's another good recommendation there to help secure or improve your posture against your certificate authorities. That was it for Defender for Identity. Defender for Endpoint hasn't had any updates suggested, but obviously we have the unified client come out, so I guess you could technically class that as being an update because it's being enhanced to have the other sensors sort of added into it. Defender for Cloud Apps. So again, this didn't have anything this for December. The only thing I will say, I probably just will pick up on the November ones because I think I missed them actually, to be fair, because I don't remember talking about these. But Session Control is using a Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps app in Enterprise app. So just recommending not to put any conditional access on it because otherwise it won't be able to run that application in Session Control. So you just want to make sure you exclude it from an all apps sort of coverage, which is interesting. I didn't even know that. So that's good to know. The other one is Defender for Cloud Apps now supports Graph API in preview. So you can now query data about discovered apps via Graph. Oh, so you can... Okay. No, the API has been enhanced, so you can now query discovered apps via the Graph API.
Nice.
So that's quite cool.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, so that's probably it for now on that one, because it was technically November's ones. Microsoft Sentinel. Let's just take a look. So again, we've got the new SOC recommendations based on similar organizations because they're integrated with the unified portal. They've brought out an agentless deployment for SAP applications. It is a limited preview at the moment. So that's being able to do it against SAP S4 HANA Cloud, Private Enterprise RISE with SAP S4 HANA on-premise, and SAP ERP Central Components, which in brackets ECC. I have no idea what those applications are. But
I was just going to make the joke of you said a bunch of words, Alan, but nothing registered in my brain.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for a comment to you. That's why I got in there first. So that's really good to bring that integration, making it easier, because I think there's been a lot of it's been quite difficult to work out how you collect the logs from it. I think it's fair to say for that.
Yeah, but isn't that the whole point of those types of systems? To have
exactly. So I would assume it's been used to Microsoft have worked with SAP to build get that connector working or get the APIs built in the service so that you can connect into it. We talked about the workbooks. Unified Microsoft Sentinel solution for Microsoft Business Apps. So they've built a solution that covers Power Platform, Dynamics 365, customer engagements, Microsoft Dynamics 365, finance and ops, or finance and operations. This update solution, so it's removing some of the old ones and they've built a new one now. So that's I'm quite interested in that, actually.
Okay, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because it's kind of been I suppose it's kind of been a little bit of a blind spot, I think it's fair to say. Trying to get logs out of those systems. Like, easy, consider it's first party kind of thing.
Because like from the like compliance space, it's always been a bit like disconnected, if that makes sense. It's you say it's first party, and I completely agree with you. On paper, it is, but in terms of its integration to anything,
It's not.
In some respects, it's worse than other like so. So yeah, I think I don't know, posture, data control, or whatever it is, visibility logging. I do think that needs to come together in some way. That's for sure. Make it easier.
Yeah, exactly. There's a new S3 based data connector for AWS WAF logs, Web Application Firewall logs. So I think that's probably just enhancing it, because I think a lot of the our logs now are via an S3, S3 bucket data connector. So just probably adding it into the list. That's probably it for Sentinel. So actually, there's quite a few there with a few interesting ones.
Yeah, definitely.
So Defender for Office, there wasn't too much on there. There's just enhancements to some of its machine learning and things like that, and from its detections. Microsoft Entra. So one thing that came out was the general availability of a dedicated first-party resource application in Entra, which is used for the synchronization between on-prem AD. So for the AD Connect, or sorry, not AD Connect, Entra Connect and Entra Connect. My words, Jesus. Entra Connect sync or Cloud Sync connectors. In effect, now as a single application, enterprise application, that now you can force the service account that's being used will automatically generate to only be allowed on that one, and blocked from other services, just to enhance that least privileged sort of access for it, because it does kind of have a fairly high permission there. In public preview, Microsoft Entra Identity Governance, approvers can revoke access in My Access now. So that's quite good, because I think previously all you could do was they could set the time when they get an access package, and they once until that time had expired, it would then expire itself, and they wouldn't maybe renew, kind of from an access review perspective. This looks like it's like a more of a reactive sort of action that you can now take. There's expansion on the self-service password reset policy audit logging. So from mid-January, it's probably around now, I guess. Then there's improved logging for that. So I guess that's just to prove which authentications and phases they're going through for that. Oh, this is an interesting one. So it's not very security related, but update profile photo on my account, instead of it having to go either via Teams or via your on-prem AD.
Whoa,
I think. So that seems interesting. You're able to update your profile from there now. So
nice.
It's quite a good one. Generally available for temporary access pass. So TAP support for internal guest users. TAPs. TAP can be issued to internal guests just like normal members through the Entra ID admin or natively through the graph. So I don't know what technically classes an internal guest user. only.
Is there anything about licensing on that?
No, it doesn't say about licensing. I think if it's, I don't know. Yeah, there's nothing saying about
Entra
licensing
Suite
there.
then. No word on price.
Yeah,
I mean, it was-
possibly.
I mean, it was-
It's probably identity governance. Yeah, it's probably.
that's what my feeling is, but I don't know. I haven't even looked
Yeah,
at it. I
they're
did see a
normally.
tweet about it.
Yeah, these previews are or these new feature etc. You know, it is suggesting whether they are Entra identity governance or not, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's probably it for that one. And then Intune. So with Intune, let's just take a look. There's loads. I mean, there is loads of updates here, but it's just working out what. So enter support for Android device administrator on devices with access to Google mobile services. So that's been, I mean, the Android device administrator sort of mode has been going in support for forever, pretty much. So, yeah, December 2024 is basically it's gone now. Device security. So the tamper protection policies that are in endpoint security settings is now supported by when the device is managed by Defender for Endpoint. So that's policy, endpoint policy manager sort of configuration now supports enabling tamper protection. So that's
Nice.
a good one to have.
Yep.
There's new. Oh, interesting. So there's ending support for administrative templates when creating new configuration profiles.
Yeah, I did see that in the portal, actually.
Yeah, so they're completely getting rid of all of them. That's interesting. They must have moved everything then.
Yeah.
I have to see how you do some of the other ones then. Oh, admin templates. Yeah, that's fair because that's in effect the group policy sort of view, isn't it? So that's fine because the catalog settings is in effect a lot better now.
Oh yeah, there's so much. Yeah. Yeah.
Intune now supports Ubuntu 24.04 LTS for Linux management. It's specified under Linux Ubuntu desktops, so suggesting it should be the desktop version, the server version. Whether Intune can determine the difference might be a question, but yes.
Some weird looking usernames, managing those machines. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it's because it's user based and not device based.
Exactly,
so I think it's the signing that side of things. Yeah, and that's probably it for Intune. Is there anything else? I've talked about all of those. Have I heard anything else? No, so that's probably it for me. It's a fair bit there. I think Sentinel was the biggest one there.
Yeah, definitely.
This time. So Sam, what's happening in Azure? Apart from the webpage changing.
Okay, I've already got this off my chest to you, but there's been another redesign of the Azure updates. Feed, and it's not great for me because I used to be able to click on a button which said everything that happened in December, and I could go through. I could leisurely just pick what I liked, what I didn't, and now it's literally chaos for me. So there's going to be an automation created over the weekend, I think. Anyway, let's not harp on about that. Okay, talking of chaos, first item, there are new built-in roles for Azure Chaos Studio. Azure Chaos Studio Experiment Contributor, Chaos Studio Operator, and Chaos Studio Reader. So new built-in rules. They do various things. I won't go through them specifically, but always great to see one of my favorites, and it just so happened to be the first update that I wanted to share. So we're starting off 2025.
I'm going to have to make a tally of how many episodes you get Chaos Studio into.
whoever the team that's working on Chaos Studio and Databox, they are feeding me every month with at least one thing, right? Because it'll be like, we've made a new Databox tank that you can drive from region to region or something like that. So yeah, I'm happy about these things. Right. Anyway, okay. I do just have to check some of these because yeah, what's real and what's not is confusing to me now. Azure SQL updates for early December. You can now get enhanced monitoring for the dynamic management function. Now that the dynamic management function displays the component causing throttling of the primary log generation rate in Azure SQL database hyperscale. Again, like your SAP, explanation, no idea, but I assume if you're using hyperscale, that is important to you. The second point, probably more prevalent to other people, you can now do 1 and 3 year reservations on Azure SQL database for zone redundant general purpose databases. And that sounds like quite a reasonable SKU, doesn't it? Zone redundant general purpose databases. So I think that's worth calling out because there could be a lot of people. There could be a lot of people using that. Okay, Azure database for Postgres flexible server. There is now general availability of a high availability health status monitoring for Postgres flexible server. So you can now track and maintain the health of high availability enabled instances a lot easier than you could before. So I assume the health monitoring wasn't high availability aware previously. I don't use that product, so I don't know, but I did think that would be quite important to talk about. There is a new cloud region in Azure. Can you guess where, Alan, or do you know where it is?
I probably do know it, but I can't think off the top of my head.
We are apparently in New Zealand now. There is an availability zone available there. So, interesting. Not somewhere that I would need to use, but yeah. Hello to all of our New Zealand listeners. There are a ton for Azure Kubernetes service, but I'm not going to go through them because I'm not the right person to talk to about those things. Okay, there is a private preview. Well, actually, by the time you're listening to this, I believe the change is already being made. But Azure Automation is revising its service and subscription limits. Okay, the revised limits now are: the maximum number of Azure Automation accounts in a subscription is 10 for enterprise and CSP subscriptions, only 2 for pay-as-you-go sponsored MSDN, NPM, and Azure Pass subscriptions, and only 1 for free trial Azure Student, Azure in Open, I don't know what that is, subscriptions. Can only create one. That last one can only create 1 automation account per region per subscription in only 6 allowed regions. Highly specific. There must have been some issue with scaling or abuse. That feels like to me. And
yeah,
then,
so have they locked that down then?
Yes, I don't know what the previous limit was. I've only got the current limit.
Yeah.
Okay, so maximum number of concurrent running jobs at the same instance of time per automation account. So yeah, concurrent running jobs now. 50 for enterprise and CSP subscriptions, 10 for pay-as-you-go sponsored MSDN, NPM, and Azure Pass subscriptions, 5 for free trials Azure for Student, Azure in Open subscriptions. Now, it does say on here that your current usage will be honoured if it's more than the revised limits. For example, if your current usage is 12 automation accounts and the new limit is 10 for you, you could still continue to use all 12 accounts. To create more accounts, you'll have to request for quota. So it does also seem like these are the default limits, but it does in that same sentence, it does say that you could request a quota increase. So just a heads up if you're using automation accounts at scale and you're running your non-production workloads on your MSDN and NPM accounts. Just a heads up for people listening. Anyway, I won't say anything more. Is there anything else here? And I'm going to say the same thing as you. There are tons and tons of Azure related updates every month. I don't cover them all because I only cover the things that I find exciting. But yeah, do check the Microsoft Azure update log, because there is a lot of really good information there. You can filter it by different products depending on what you're using, so you can keep up to date with what's changing in your environment. There is a public preview for Azure Database for MySQL bindings into Azure Functions. MySQL is I don't know if it's the biggest. I don't have those stats off the top of my head, but MySQL is a very, very popular database management system. And Microsoft has a first-party hosted and managed version of it that you can run, called Azure Database for MySQL, and there are now first-party bindings for Azure Functions. So yeah, if you do have an application that is maybe backed, or an infrastructure that's backed with MySQL, and you want to start using Azure Functions, you can use input and output bindings directly within the functions now, which is very, very helpful.
It's MySQL's second on the list.
Okay, what's the top? Is it Postgres? Or no? No, wait. Is SQLite on that list, even though it's not a hosted one? Or
third is Microsoft SQL Server.
Okay.
First is Oracle.
Interesting. Okay. Shout out to all the Oracle devs that listen to this podcast.
As of June 24.
Okay. Okay. That is all I've got for Azure. And again, there is more there, so please do go and check. I'm also going to cover Defender for Cloud. I feel like the biggest update for one of the biggest updates that we've had is we've had adjustment to the scan interval timings, and this is actually, it's interesting that I'd never seen the details of scan intervals previously, but an update's been published which sort of extend out the scan intervals. So intervals which were set between 1 and 3 hours will be updated to 4 hours. Intervals set to 5 hours will be updated to 6. Intervals set between 7 and 11 hours will be updated to 12. And intervals of 13 hours or more will be updated to 24 hours. So they're slowing down those scanning intervals.
Yeah, so I think on the connectors, if I remember, you could specify in hours how often. I'm guessing there were some people were setting it to 1 hour, like scans or something.
Again, yeah. And there is obviously, I don't know, with a lot of security tooling that Microsoft has, sometimes it can be, I'll call it different, the way that it works in terms of timers and intervals, and it's not like, like local on-prem immediate now. Does that make sense? A lot of it is time-based. But a lot of that information, yes, when you're setting up like Defender for Cloud, you want that information to drop the first time relatively quickly, don't you? To maybe get, some visibility. But then when it's actually checking over time, a change from, like 3 to 4 hours or 13 hours to 24 hours, I probably don't think is, going to be a massive issue there. Cloud connectors associated with AWS, GCP, JFrog, and Docker Hub have also been revised as well. You can now set the scan interval to 4, 6, 12, or 24 hours. The default scan intervals for new connectors will continue to be 12 hours.
Okay,
so is that,
so
yeah, is that what you were referring to? The 1 hour being able to drop it down? basically.
Yeah. So so change the interface to meet those numbers, and then basically they're rejigging
Yes.
the current configured ones to match those new values.
Don't worry, everybody. You don't have to update that. We'll do that on your behalf, basically. Okay. Defender for Cloud Security Posture Management, CSPM's sensitivity scanning capabilities now includes Azure file shares in GA, in addition to blob containers.
That's quite good.
Yeah, because a lot of usage of Azure files out there. Apparently, the setup experience has been revised as well, but I don't have. There's a new guided setup experience of your cloud environment, so that'd be interesting to try. And I think that's it from me on Defender for Cloud. Let me just see. No, I think that's it for me on Defender for Cloud.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, we did have Ignite November, didn't we? So there's not going to be huge amounts coming out. I mean, to be fair, there's quite a few on that list between us. So
Oh yeah, we're at 36 minutes. Yeah, yeah, and it was December, which is, let's call it a half month, right? So yeah, fair play as always. Those teams are keeping their products up to date, and in turn giving us stuff to talk about.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Okay, what's the next episode then, Sam?
Yeah, it's my episode next time. I'm going to cover Defender for APIs, which is a workload within Defender for Cloud. So yeah, I think we've done other Defender for Cloud type episodes, I believe. We have jumped into some of the workloads, so we're going to continue on with that with Defender for APIs.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting one to look at.
Yeah, because of the sensitivity and complexity of APIs, it's interesting how they've approached that workload, I would say.
Yeah, and its integration with sort of a data security lens on it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not just the schema and access control methodologies, it's also data as well.
Cool. So did you enjoy this episode? If so, please do consider leaving us a review on Apple, Spotify, on YouTube. This really helps us to reach more people like yourselves. If you have any specific feedback or suggestions for our episodes, we have a link in our show notes to get in contact with us.
Yeah, and if you've made it this far, thanks ever so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Yep, see you later. Bye.